Kahamura Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanatan Kahada Saragu Nata Patita Pavan Kahada Saragu Nata Patita Pavan Kahamura Bhatha Yuga Kaha Kaviraj Kahamura Bhatha Yuga Kaha Kaviraj Eka Kali Kotagela Gaura Nataraj Eka Kali Kotagela Gaura Nataraj Pashane Kutibo Mata Anale Pashibo Pashane Kutibo Mata Anale Pashibo Goranga Gunira Nidhi Kotha Khele Pabo Goranga Gunira Nidhi Kotha Khele Pabo Saba Sangira Sangi Ye Koilo Bila Saba Sangira Sangi Ye Koilo Bila Sangana Kande Narotamodas Sangana Kande Narotamodas So, Narottam Das Thakur, the author of this wonderful song, Prabhupada instructed that on the disappearance days of the Vaishnavas, we should sing this song. Because Narottam expresses the feeling of separation so perfectly, we can learn. So he says, he who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, where has such a personality as Srinivasa Acharya gone? And Ramananda Roy. See, Ramananda Roy was the Ragmag Guru of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there's a section in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ramananda Samvad. It's him, Mahaprabhu is asking him like if he's the student or the disciple, and Ramananda Roy is answering like the Guru. It is also mentioned that Ramananda Roy was an incarnation of Arjuna and somebody else. But Arjuna, we know from Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is a disciple and Krishna is a speaker. Hmm? And Lalita, one of the associates of Radharani. So in Gita, Krishna is speaking, he's instructing Arjuna, Arjuna is inquiring. And now Krishna, as Krishna Chaitanya, he wants to see what Arjuna has learned. So he's asking him. Very nice section. And then he says, where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami, the savior of the fallen? So these personalities, they were all very close associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Through them, Krishna consciousness, teachings, philosophy was disseminated. Like Swarup Damodar, he was the secretary of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Everything went through Swarup Damodar before it got to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If somebody wrote something, they couldn't just go up and give it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They had to give it to Swarup Damodar. He would check it and make sure it was bona fide, make sure it was good. If not, he would tell them, you don't know how to write transcendental knowledge. He told one Brahmin so. He said, you have to hear from Guru Parampara, from bona fide, before you can even attempt to write something transcendental. So Swarup Damodar was a good secretary. He kept notes on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it's from those notes and other Vaishnavas that Krishnadas Kaviraj wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because they were with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And of course the others, he mentions Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami. These, of course, you've heard their names before. They're part of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had, after instructing them, he sent them to Vrindavan, which at that time was just a jungle. Krishna, we know, appeared in and had his pastimes. He grew up in Vrindavan, but after 5,000 years, there were no more buildings, nothing. In due course of time, everything breaks down in the material world. Our bodies break down, but even buildings will not stand. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had visited Vrindavan before, and he, because he's the same as he's Krishna. He discovered re-excavated some of the places of Krishna's pastime. And so he told the Goswamis to go there and live there and continue to, re-excavate the places where Krishna performed his pastime. So they went there. As I said, there were no buildings, there were no temples. They were living under a tree, under trees. Just find a tree and that's your place of residence. But even though they were living under these trees, they wrote such incredibly wonderful literatures which we can have today. Rupa Goswami, he wrote the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and Prabhupada translated that and gave it to us as the Nectar of Devotion. Most important book. It explains the science of devotional service. So, then he also, Narottam says, where are my Raghunath Bhatta Goswamis, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? He wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he says, where did they all go? And where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, where did he suddenly go? He would cry, just thinking of how I missed them. He had such high feelings of separation. He says, I will smash my head against the rocks and I'll enter into the fire. He's thinking, what is the use of living? How can I live and go on when they're gone? He didn't do it, but he expressed this feeling. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expressed similar feeling. He was in his last few years where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived in Jagannath Puri, he was feeling intense separation from Krishna. This is called Vipralamba. Vipralamba. And when people would say to him, oh, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you're such a great devotee. People would say that because he came as a devotee to teach us. So when people said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you are such a great devotee, he would say, no, I don't even have a scent. You know what is a scent? The smell. Like you smell a rose flower, it gives off a scent. He says, I don't even have a scent of devotion for Krishna. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the people would say, "Oh, but we see you're always crying." Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always crying in separation, especially these last few years of his life in Jagannath Puri. He was always accompanied by Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy. They knew how to comfort him, what to say to him, what songs to sing for him, what verses to quote for him that would pacify his mind. So they said, people say, "But we see you're always crying, Lord Chaitanya." He said, "That is just to make a show." He said, "That is just to make a show. If I actually had any love for Krishna, how could I go on living this insect-like life?" He said, "My life is like an insect, all eating and sleeping." You know? This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, "If I actually had love, how could I go on living? And I'm living like an insect when Krishna is gone." So we don't feel like that. We don't think, it doesn't even enter our mind that Krishna is not here, he's gone. Or Prabhupada, right? Many of you missed Prabhupada when you took birth. He was gone. A few, we were fortunate to meet him. But still, we are still living. But Narottam is expressing these feelings that I don't want to live. He says, being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all these wonderful devotees like Ramananda Raya, etc., in whose association he performed his pastimes, I can simply cry, weep. But the acharyas have told us, if you want to feel Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you want to feel for these associates, you want to feel Prabhupada, then you have to go out and Sankirtan. That was the desire of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says, whoever you meet, anywhere, wherever you meet them, you have to tell them about Krishna. Krishna consciousness it's so important. If you feel I'm getting something from being in the association of devotees, I'm getting something out of it, that's why I'm staying here, then your duty is to go out and Sankirtan. So, let us hear something about this. This is the 8th chapter in Madhya Lila, volume 3. Talks between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy. There's a summary of the chapter first, we will read. This summary, Prabhupada said, this summary was given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. Amrita means nectar. Nectar. So to hear these pastime descriptions, the conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his association, this is Amrita, nectar. We all want nectar. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was at this time traveling, touring. After taking sannyas, he went to Jagannath Puri and made his headquarters there. He did so on the request of his mother, Sachi Mata, because when he took sannyas, only a few people knew. Advaita Acharya, he told maybe 5 people, I'm taking sannyas. And early in the morning, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got up and walked out the house. Sachimata was up. And she was like stunned. And he walked past her, walked out the door, went to the Ganges and swam across the Ganges. And he went to Katwa. And there he took sannyas. His hair, his beautiful long hair was shaved off. The barber didn't want to do it. Nobody wanted him to do it. The barber was crying. And Mahaprabhu ordered him, you must, come on, shave up. He did it reluctantly, and afterwards he says he will never shave anybody up again. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then left. But Nityananda Prabhu, who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's other self, Nityananda Prabhu, he was feeling for the devotees. He says, when they hear, when the word gets out, people start talking. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has left. He's left Navadvip, he's left Nadia. And he's taken sannyas. And he shaved up all his hair. They would all be plunged into the feeling of separation. So Nityananda Prabhu was feeling sorry for them. He tricked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to come back. This is very nicely described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he came back, and I believe they came back to Advaita Acharya's house. And Nityananda Prabhu notified everyone, come. This is your last chance to see him before he's gone. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to go to Vrindavan. As I said, he's feeling separation from Krishna. He wanted to go there. And when he came back, everybody, all the devotees from the Navadvip side, all came to see him. And his mother came. The only person who didn't come was his wife, Vishnu Priya, because the custom, she was not allowed to come. So she can imagine how she was feeling. But Sachimata came, and when she saw him, she again began to cry. Seeing him with his shaved head. his beautiful hair is gone, and he's in saffron. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw her, his heart, he's not a heartless person. So he fell at Sachimata's feet, touched her feet with his head, and then he sat up and he said, "Mother, this body belongs to you. You gave me this body." Right? We get body from the mother. And he said, trying to explain his position, he said, in a moment of madness, somehow or other, something came over me and I took sannyas. This is how he said. So he explained to his mother, I don't know what came over me. I just did it. He said, but if you want, you just tell me right now, I will give up this sannyas and I'll come back home with you. And she said, no, how could I ask you to do that? If you do that, people will talk. As we know, people talk. They're always talking, gossiping, Gramya Katha, they will talk all over the village. Everybody will be talking. Did you hear? Nimai took sannyas and he's like a mama's boy. He went back home. She said, I couldn't bear to hear people talking like this. So, what to do? So she then suggested, she said, I think you should go to Jagannath Puri, make your base there. Because devotees from Bengal, every year they will go to Jagannath Puri for Rath Yatra, and when they come back, they'll bring news. I'll get to hear how you're doing. They'll bring back news to me. It's like Jagannath Puri is like a room another room in the house. All the Vaishnavas they go there. So he said, okay, I will do like that. So he went to there. And sure enough, devotees would come every year for the Rath Yatra. They couldn't, they would walk. I don't know how far it is, from Mayapur to Jagannath Puri. The overnight train. But in those days, there were no trains, no cars, no bus. Means you want to go, you have to walk. So maybe they walk for a month.
600 kilometers. Maybe
600 kilometers. Something like that. It'd take a month walking. They'd bring in, bogat, and they cook prasadam on the way, stop, eat, sleep, and walk, and chant. Yeah, this way every year they would go. And when they go to Puri, they'd spend 2-3 months with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then come back. After some time, he decided, I would still want to go to Vrindavan. So he went out touring. So, here we are. After visiting the temple of Jiyada Nrsimha, this is a Nrsimhadev temple, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the banks of the river Godavari. River Godavari. To a place known as Vidyanagara. Vidyanagara. And at that time, when he's there on the banks of the river, Srila Ramananda Raya came there to take his bath. He was the governor, so he was a big person. He didn't come alone. He came with servants that bring him. So, this is just a summary. The descriptions in detail will be given. It's wonderful. So, they both met, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Raya. After being introduced, Sri Ramananda Raya requested Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to remain in the village for some days. Honoring his request, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed there in the home of some Vedic Brahmanas. How fortunate. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to stay in your home. And then in the evening, every evening, Ramananda Roy used to come to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and talk with him. Ramananda Roy, of course, was clothed in ordinary dress. As I said, he was a minister in the government. He offered his respectful obeisances to Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu questioned him on the object and process of worship. And he also asked him to recite verses from the Vedic literature, from scriptures, to substantiate what he was saying, his statements. This is the custom. Prabhupada said, in spiritual circles, you must always quote from the scriptures to support what it is you're saying. So you're not just making it up. First of all, Srila Ramananda Roy enunciated the system of Varnashram. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him, what is the goal of life? How can we achieve it? He begins by saying, follow Varnashram. And he gave evidence for that. In summary, he said that everything should be dedicated to the Lord. And then he spoke about detached action. And then he spoke about knowledge mixed with devotion. And finally, he spoke about spontaneous, loving service of the Lord. So he begins with Varnashram. And after explaining this is the way to achieve the goal of life, Mahaprabhu said, you got anything better than that to say? And then he said something more. Mahaprabhu said, still, go further. And he kept going until he came to Raga Bhakti, spontaneous devotional. So then Mahaprabhu said, yes, now you're getting somewhere. So that is our goal. We want to develop spontaneous loving service, but to get there we have to follow rules and regulations. That is called Vaidhi Bhakti. There's Raganuga Bhakti and Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti leads to Raganuga Bhakti. And this is all explained in the Nectar of Devotion. So, after hearing Ramananda Roy recite some verses supporting his talk, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the principle of pure devotional service devoid of all kinds of speculation. As a new devotee, we were always told, don't speculate. Because we're used to speculating. I think. People speak like this. I think. And Prabhupada would say, what is your thinking? You have to be convinced that your thinking is wrong. You have no knowledge. So Prabhupada has given us all these wonderful books. So, Mahaprabhu says, pure devotional service devoid of all kinds of speculation. I'm interested in that. After this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Roy to explain the higher platform of devotional service. And Ramananda Roy explained unalloyed devotional service. It's unalloyed. We were reading in Paris, Sarcelles Temple, how this word unalloyed became part of Prabhupada's vocabulary. One day in New York, this is the early days, 66, Prabhupada took the devotees and said, come, we are going somewhere. They were in Boston. You can't sleep now. You're going to miss all the Amrita. So Prabhupada took the devotees. They didn't know where they were going from the first Boston temple. And he took them to the docks, the harbor, where the ships come in. And it was there that Prabhupada entered America first. The Jaladuta, the boat that he came from India, it docked at the Boston harbor. And from there, Prabhupada then took a bus and went upstate New York, went to Pennsylvania. So he brought the devotees there. And it was like a little outing. When the teacher takes the students and says, today we are going out, takes the class for an outing. So everyone was happy. But he took them to the docks. You know, there's lots of warehouse buildings and, you know, it would go to a harbor. And then he led them to a place where there was this big warehouse building, and on top of it had a sign, unalloyed steel or something. And then he explained to them what is the meaning of unalloyed. Alloy means mixed. So they mix different mixtures of metal. So he said, unalloyed means no mixture, pure. So he said, so this is, Krishna consciousness means we want pure devotional service, not mixed, unalloyed. No, Rupa Goswami taught, no karma, no gyan, anyabhilashita sunyam, free from all of that. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes to teach this. So, Ramananda Roy, after explaining unalloyed bhakti, he taught about love of Godhead, serving the Lord with pure service attitude, as well as in fraternity. Fraternity means friendship. Sakya. These are things that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught. How to serve Krishna. Dasya Bhakti, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. All pure devotional service. Finally, Ramananda Roy spoke about serving the Lord in conjugal love. This conjugal love attains its highest perfection in Srimati Radharani's love for Krishna. He next described the position of Srimati Radharani and the transcendental mellows of love of God. And then Ramananda Roy recited one verse of his own. In other words, he composed a verse. How exalted is Ramananda Roy? It is said that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kept nudging him, can you say more? I want to hear more. And he kept going, and it got to a point, and Mahaprabhu said, any more? And Ramananda Roy said, I can say something, but it's not in scriptures. Mahaprabhu said, say it. Because of course he knew Ramananda Roy is his eternal associate. So he recited a verse that he composed. These verses will be found in the text in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Ramananda Roy recited one verse of his own concerning the platform of ecstatic vision. This is technically known as Prema Vilas Vivarta. Prema Vilas Vivarta. It's a high state. Ramananda Roy also explained that all stages of conjugal love can be attained through the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan, especially by the mercy of the gopis. Actually, all the states of devotional service, Dasya, Sakya, you attain these by following in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan. It's not ordinary. They came with Krishna, and they're the examples. Their love for Krishna, how they lived, everything. So, all these subject matters were vividly described by Ramananda Roy. Gradually, Ramananda Roy could understand the position of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As he's going, this time? All right, I'll wrap it up. As he's going questioning, he could understand who he's dealing with, who he's talking with. This is no ordinary sannyasi. And Mahaprabhu then he showed Ramananda Roy that he is none different from Radha and Krishna. There's a painting in the book where you see Ramananda Roy is stunned sitting down, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is standing in front of him, and Radha and Krishna on either side. It says, when Mahaprabhu showed this to him, Srila Ramananda Roy fell unconscious. And after some days, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then asked Ramananda Roy, I think you should give up your job. He liked his association. So you should give up your job, retire from being a minister, and come to Jagannath Puri and be with me. These descriptions of the meeting between Ramananda Roy and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are all taken from the notebooks of Swarup Damodar. So, that's just the summary of the chapter. So we have run out of time, but these books are there for you all to read. And Prabhupada expressed when he was coming on the ship, on the boat, not a ship, it was a cargo boat from India to America. He said, my only solace was Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, reading this book. And he was so inspired to preach. So, Srila Ramananda Roy ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanande.